thank you everyone for joining us for our 36th session. It's an amazing journey as always, to be with you on every week, every other week, and doing these knowledge series session that can empower and inspire you throughout your career and your growth. So thanks for taking the time on a Saturday to join us. I know that it's a lovely weather out there, so I'm sure that all of you are really ready to go and explore the great weather that we have in Toronto. But yeah, today's session is gonna be very interesting, and I'm sure that you're gonna all enjoy it. For some of you that you have been the first participant of these sessions, want to give you a bit of background about TCAE and about myself. And TCAE, basically, we created the TCAE for all the professionals in compliance and AML in the whole entire world. It started actually in Toronto, as you could see, TCAE, it's Toronto Compliance and AML events. We started it initially in Toronto, but we got expanded dramatically since last year that we started our knowledge series session during the pandemic. And that showed me that, our extent and the ability, to reach out to many of the people is not only for Canada or for Toronto. So the aim of the TCA is basically to educate, inspire, and also connect you together. So that's what we are aiming for, and this is our goal, and we are trying our best, in order to do that. If you haven't seen our website, please feel free to visit our website. We have all the events that are happening around the globe, actually putting out there. The team has been doing an amazing work on that. If you haven't joined our LinkedIn group, feel free to join. We have almost around 1,000 members. We're getting into 1,000 members, so that's gonna be good. You all get information about the link on the chat box if you like to join, or if you haven't joined the group. And also follow us to get to know more about our sessions and what we have planned. We have so many great projects coming in, and we would like to let us know. So feel free, to just join us and follow us. Also download our app. We have you can download it if you have an Android or Apple. You can just go to the store, just search for TCA, and you can download our app so that you can get to know all the accesses to the events that are happening. And at the same time, you can also enjoy any of the knowledge series session that you haven't seen before. Most of you have asked me that, oh, we were not able to attend. Can we watch that knowledge series? And yes, you can just go to our website. All the recordings are available, and you can enjoy listening to those sessions. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to Laura, our guest speaker of the session today. We are really pleased to have her with us. I got acquainted with her hopefully, before the pandemic started in one of the conferences, and we kind of I guess we acquainted, and it was really lovely, to meet her. And she has been extremely amazing professional, and really inspiring of the work that she had done. And she is actually the associate director in the financial crime advisory of the AML RightSource. So you're all in a very, very good hand today. And she's gonna talk about the AML testing. So it's a very, very important subject, and I feel that we all can benefit from this amazing session. So without further ado, I want to just introduce Laura. Just hand over the floor. Tell more about yourself, Laura, to us, and tell a bit more about your experience and what have you done in the past.
Great. Thank you so much, Susan. So it's great to be here today. It's great to see everyone here who's on this lovely Saturday here in Toronto. Hopefully it's nice where you are as well. And if not, I apologize on behalf of Canadian weather that's out of line with the time of year. Anyways, so as Susan said, we'll be talking today about the importance of AML compliance testing. And to give you a bit of background on me, I'm not going to like read this whole thing over. You guys can read it. But I've had over 20 years in financial services. Yes, I started young. I started as a teller, and now I'm here. And I kind of like to take that, little, it's a lyric actually from a Drake song that I changed up because he said he started from the bottom, now he's here. So anyways, there's the other connection to Toronto as well. So as I said, I've been 20 years financial industry, from teller, working my way all the way up through the ranks at BMO, and in a number of different roles. And then I did get exposed to audit, and it was actually an assessment team. It was a testing and assessment team that was introduced to proactively identify deficiencies, issues, things like that. And actually, that's what we're going to talk about today. So after my 9-year tenure at BMO, I moved on to Bank of America Merrill Lynch, and actually AGF Trust as well. And that's where I really got really passionate about AML and financial crime compliance. And really, yes, I will call it, my baby. And yeah, I'm one of those self-professed AML geeks, nerds too. So, and I'm proud of it. And so, as I said, I've had a number of different roles, and in the past, the last almost 10 years, I've been in high-level executive roles in banks and payment companies in the capacity of Chief Anti-Money Laundering Officer and Chief Compliance Officer. And I've had my CAMs since 2009, certified as a cryptocurrency investigator just recently, which is great. And I also, as Susan said, I like to obviously be involved with everything as much as possible within our industry, and share knowledge at industry events and such things as that, and be a part of great associations such as the Canadian MSB Association, and also being a fellow and mentor for the 12 program. So without further ado, we will move on now to the good stuff. So these are the hot topics. As you can tell, see, I get really excited. Sorry, I got too excited. I went forward. So our learning objectives for today, you guys can see them. So we're going to go over why you should conduct testing, all that good stuff, how to ensure the board's on board, developing the testing program, high level, how to carry out testing, and how to always be exam ready. So poll number 1, we're going to pull that up, and I want to get a sense of what you think here. So Susan, if you could help me with that.
Sure, absolutely. You have the poll question on your screen right now. Do you think compliance testing programs are valuable to reporting entities?
So we have some different answers here.
Yes, of course. We would probably guess that it would be the most
Hopefully,
and
uh,
then a waste of time. So
sorry.
let's
Yeah.
take 30 seconds for everyone, to answer the poll. And I think we can launch the result and see how everyone did.
And then I'm gonna have to find out who I have to convince. Oh, someone's not sure. That's okay. At least no one said no.
Okay,
That's exciting for
we
me.
start.
Awesome. 91%. Yes. All right.
Okay,
That's exactly what I wanted to see.
great.
Wonderful. Thanks, everyone. Okay. So why should we conduct AML compliance testing? It's really a given. You want to be proactive with your monitoring and testing program to ensure that you are identifying deficiencies, issues, breakdowns in controls, um, any sort of things that need to be remediated, deficiencies of any sort in the AML world that would be of a high risk to the entity. It is important for those to be tested regularly so that you proactively identify these issues before the auditors get there, before your independent review or your audit from an external auditor, and also before the regulator gets there or the examiner when they come and knocking at your door. So really, I want to go over the importance of that. And really, if you're conducting AML compliance testing, there should be really no surprises, okay, in your reviews or audits. And then if there are, you just learn from them, obviously, and you will remediate those issues, and we'll get to what you should do after, okay? All right, so yeah, I didn't really have a representative picture of the board, so we got a chessboard there. So this is really important, as with the compliance program itself, is the tone at the top. So your board, your senior management of the firm, they and the compliance officer, obviously, they all need to understand the integral parts to a successful compliance program. So it's not just, meeting the regulations or just FinTrack guidance. It's also incorporating best practices and being, as I said, proactive. Because if you have a testing program in place, hopefully you're going to be catching these things, and then you're going to mitigate the potential risks of issues coming up that you could be penalized for in a very harsh way. Because when an entity gets fined, I know it doesn't happen that much in Canada, but as of late, there's been a few, which have been a little encouraging. And there seems to be a trend. Talk about that after, if we get to it. But you really want to explain to the senior management and the board, if they're not on board with internal compliance testing, you need to show them, the WIFM. If everyone's heard that, the what's in it for me. So making sure they understand the risks that are involved with non-compliance with the PCML TFA or the AML ATF CTF laws of your jurisdiction. So if you get a fine, you're going to be in the papers, you're going to suffer reputational risk, even if it's a small fine or anything. This is negative news on the entity, on your entity, on the firm, and it doesn't bode well, obviously, when you're on the front page of the Financial Times or the New York Times, especially when there are egregious issues that have been found. So in addition to the reputational risk, there's financial risk, obviously, because you got to pay a big penalty. And there's further operational risks, and there's client risks. I remember thinking to myself when there was the Manulife Bank fine, that if I, no offense, okay, if I banked there, I thought to myself, would I really want to be a customer there? I don't know. So, and same with other banks that have had other issues, that actually revolve around financial crimes as well, like cybercrime and things like that. But I'm not here to talk about that today. So what do we want to explain to the board is the WIFM, what's in it for them. They want to stay compliant. You want to stay out of the penalty box. You want to be proactive, identify these errors before the regulator or the examiner comes, or your auditor. And always focus on continuous improvement. Okay, so the examples of penalties levied by regulators is huge to illustrate really the state of the AML AML laws globally and the penalties that have been levied. Recently, as you can see from this slide here, I know everyone can read, so I'm not going to read it, but it's important to note regulatory compliance fines for AML and other violations that are related to financial crimes. They're on the rise. There's more regulation, there's more focus on that. There's a number of reasons why. There are some really notable findings or issues, like big cases. This is the second largest case ever for a penalty, which is why I wanted to highlight it today. This is the key example that I would put in a report if I needed to, a memo to the board, whatever, on the risks associated with, these, the fines and the penalties, things like that in your jurisdiction and also in the industry worldwide, right? Because you can learn, even though, say, we're in Canada, we can see, okay, so Westpac, they really messed up a lot. they messed up here, and it's like, it is interesting to read, what they were actually fined for, right? The violations itself, and to see. Now for this case, it'd be a little hard because there's approximately 76,000 contraventions and that they breached the law 23 million times. So this case is really one of the most egregious cases I've seen. If anyone can tell me otherwise, I'd love to hear that. I know there's a larger fine, but this is the one, so we might have some stuff come in. But if anyone else can think of some good ones too. It's always important to have an illustrative type of communication for the board. Yeah.
Laura, if I could chime in here,
Mhm.
I think majority of what I've seen from the board and senior management was that,
Mm.
oh, this is not going to happen to us. Like
Mhm.
that is the
Mhm.
thing that it will always they will always come back and say that, oh, this is not for us. This is for someone else. It's like it's
Right.
the neighbor is gonna be the problem. It's not. It would never happen to us.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this is the mentality that needs to be changed. I think that yes, it could happen to you. It will happen to you if you don't have the system and controls that should be in place, to help and mitigate all those, uh, bridges. Like
Mhm.
23 million times is not a joke. That means
No.
that means a lot, and that could be anyone. Anyone could be at risk.
Yeah. So, and this is one of the largest. This is one of the largest Australian banks, and at 1.3 billion, like even in Australian dollars, that is huge. So this is definitely a one that you would want to show to, get them on board. If they don't think it's ever going to happen to them, we just show them the risk of, okay, so would you rather have invest in a good and robust compliance testing program for your AML program and maybe hire another person? Okay, so not too much of an expense. Would you rather be fined and put in the paper and on FinTrack's website, emails going out to everybody saying so-and-so got fined, just like this one we're going to talk about quick and gloss over. So this one, let's just say this one, I know that there were some issues I heard with this entity. For an MSB to be fined $100,000, and this is obviously after they've gone to court and with FinTrack and all that, it's gone through the court systems. These guys or this business is probably out of business now. These are the types of things that could happen. You might totally lose your reputation. No clients are going to want to deal with you. They might think you're shady, right? These are the things that you can also explain to senior management. And also, all the staff should know as well the importance of, at a high level, the importance of testing, and that, there are consequences to non-compliance or partial compliance even, right? So you can read that big long thing there. So here's another one, Deutsche Bank. They got fined for just dealing with someone that they knew. Well, someone who was a convicted sex offender, and they had numerous suspicious transactions filed as well. So really look what they've had to do. So even though they knew, even though they knew they had this relationship and they knew that there was an ongoing investigation with the former client, Epstein, they, came out and said they deeply regret it. Well, yes, they should. If they knew they were dealing with such a high-risk customer, this should have been caught in their monitoring and testing and escalated accordingly. As a result of this, look what they've had to do. They've spent almost $1 billion now as a result of this. So that is huge. Like, I know Deutsche Bank is a big bank. they paid $150 million fine for just this lapse, but they still had to spend $1 billion more, and invest that into their program. And they had to hire more than 1,500 more people as a result. So really, if you have a good compliance program and the proper resources in place, these things should hopefully be mitigated. So we're going to go on to the poll number 2.
Great. So you will have it on your screen now. Have you performed or been involved in testing before? Yes, no, or I don't recall. So let's give you another 20 seconds for everyone to just answer. So let's see the result.
I knew someone would choose the last one, and I think I know who it is. Just probably they did it for fun. But I would like to find out the person who doesn't recall. Either it was really boring or it was a long time ago, I guess. But that's great. So we have more than half of the attendees who've been involved or performed testing before. So that's great to see. All right, so let's move on there. All right, so this is one of my favorites there. Death to the tick box. As quoted by the great editor-in-chief of ACAMS, Karen Beer. Yes, I'm a geek and I still get my ACAMS today in the print format. So this is the most recent one. And there happened to be an article in here from Karen Beer. And it's called Death to the Tick Box. Long live catch the bad guys. So really, and then this article really resonated with me because I said, okay, this needs to be in my presentation for sure. Because a lot of people will think, oh, this is just, a checklist thing. We got to complete a checklist. All right, we completed the checklist, we're done. It's much more than that. And, yes, you may have some things that are in a checklist format, but it's not just saying, okay, yes, you're going to have yes, as, after you've tested it and say why it's compliant, what you did to evaluate it, those types of things. Okay. So it's not just like saying, yep, we got that on, yep. Okay, we have a compliance officer. Yep. We have a program. Yep. Policy. Yep. It's not like that. Much more detail. All right. Okay, so in the interest of time, we're going to cruise through some of these slides here. But what I want to highlight is the importance with how to kind of form your compliance, your AML testing program. So taking and applying a risk-based approach to your internal AML testing program is key. So what do I mean by that? Is you want to consider the most highest risk areas to your firm and focus and hone in on those highest risk areas per your risk assessment, per prior findings from regulatory exams, maybe industry best practices that you could incorporate. Also, penalties that have been levied recently, things like that. You want to look for the key areas of the AML program that are subject to the highest risks for your firm, and it's also really important to note that compliance testing programs, they must be tailored. They can't be one size fits all. There's no way. Okay, so one, a small entity is going to do it one way. Larger entities are going to obviously have more a more robust and fulsome, I guess, program, I could say.
Laura, may I ask a question?
Sure.
How would you use your risk assessment to form the testing that you want to do?
Okay, good question. So really, as everyone should know, the risk assessment for anti-money laundering and anti-terrorist financing is a requirement to complete, and you must test, or you must assess the risks that are that pertain to your organization. So that includes a number of different categories: your clients, geography, delivery channels, products and services, and other aspects as well, that are all under the realm of the risk assessment. So once the risk assessment is complete and the highest risk areas have been identified, that is what you want to hone in on. And you want to take that risk assessment and say, okay, so STRs, suspicious transactions, that's huge. If you miss something, that's not a good thing. So that's always a high risk area. Same with the penalty that's aligned with not filing an STR. So that's basically what you want to do. Does that help?
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Or if you have like a big exposure to, say, sanctions, then you want to really, really, really test your watch list system, your screening. Make sure that's up to date, and do tuning and model validations and fun stuff like that. But that's another session.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Alrighty. So I'm gonna plow through these. So, because a lot of you have done testing before. So in order to have a really, really good compliance testing program, you need to be prepared with, the documentation that you need, the scope of what you're going to be testing, setting out test plans, and ensuring that you have a documented repository of your controls. Okay, so the controls in place for the highest risk areas that you're going to focus on. I'm not saying one thing though, I'm not saying you shouldn't focus on medium and low, but to start with, if you're just starting an AML testing program that's internal under the AML department, then that is where you should be starting, is the highest risk areas. And if you're a larger organization, then you want to build that out into the further risk categories. Also, you want to make sure you're not doing all the testing at once, okay? Because I've seen in my previous reviews and current reviews I'm doing now, where testing is done maybe on an annual basis, and then compliance team is really just banging out everything on within a month. So it's really important and a best practice to stagger the reviews and the testing, so you don't have the whole thing to do, really. So for example, you want to test your economic sanctions screening monthly, maybe, do a few tests, enter some some names that are known to be sanction names. See if they come up. Okay, and never skimp on documentation. Always keep your documents that you've either, your work papers, that's your tests and your test plan, the controls. As the great Jennifer Fittian Green would say, document, document, document. I remember that from, I think it was over 15 years ago when I met her when I worked at AGF Trusts. And that just, I will never forget that. It was an AML training session she came to do for us in the compliance department. And really resonated with me, and it's still applicable today. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this one we're just going to gloss over. Okay, so transparency. This is a big thing. This is also key to your program. So if you are doing if you have a proactive ongoing AML testing program, you want to have, the audit team know about this. Maybe have them help. They could collaborate. I'm not saying that audit is totally separate, the internal audit, okay? And what we're talking about today is testing completed by the AML department under the purview of the CCO or the compliance officer or the CAMO, that type of thing. So you want to be as transparent as possible with your regulators, your auditors, and your senior management and board. So if, for example, you're doing testing, you find something, you can actually do something that's called a voluntary disclosure to FINTRAC, and it can keep you out of the penalty box. We'll talk about that in a bit, but I don't have that much time, so I got to run through this really quick. So these are the key things, the tools to assist with your AML obligations that FINTRAC has set out for us in 2019. So they developed some tools for us, which is great. Long time coming. So we have the compliance framework for FINTRAC. This is this is a document that would be great for you to review and consider for your testing plan, okay? Same with the manual. The manual for FINTRAC's assessments and examinations has been updated. It really, it could be more descriptive, let's say. However, it's better than it was before. And it does give you the expectations of what FINTRAC is going to test or look for. And it may not tell you exactly how, but you can use that as your, leverage from these documents, okay? Because that's why FINTRAC has really created them for the reporting entities. Also to note, the AMP policy, for penalties was revised, so there will not be any unnamed banks fined over $1 million, and then we don't find out about it until later. So that's a good thing. We also have now guidance on penalty calculations, okay? And as I said, the voluntary self-disclosure or declaration, okay, of non-compliance. And this is really key. This is a part of the WIFM, okay? If you find deficiencies, control breakdowns, or any of the sort that is non-compliant, that is deemed in non-compliance with the Act or AML laws or FinTrack guidance, you need to be transparent and advise the regulator as soon as possible under the voluntary self-declaration, okay, process. And the links are here, so you can check those out. And basically what the voluntary self-declaration program does is it encourages institutions to self-report, to self-identify first through their testing, right? Or through whatever, some sort of thing that happens to one of their alert systems and they don't say file STRs on time. So you could tell FinTrack, basically, you do a disclosure to FinTrack. They want to know, you know, your remediation, all that fun stuff. And if you don't have an exam that's scheduled as of yet by FinTrack, they will not penalize you for that disclosure you've made. That is key. Okay. And that is really, you know, the big piece of the puzzle here is if you're doing the testing, if you do find something out and it is in, you know, let's say worth it to disclose that there could be a potential fine, then that's what this process is all about. Okay. Okay, so in interest of time, I'm going to gloss over this here. So you just want to leverage, this is just more, where can you get information from? How can you develop samples? I have a link to a sample size calculator below. So you guys can check that out for your statistical samples. I don't know, do we have time to go to it really quick, Susan?
Yeah, let's go do it.
Yeah, yeah, okay. All right. So here we have this great sample size calculator that I've used before. So what you want to do, okay, this is how you figure out statistical samples if you don't know.
Laura, you should share your screen, I think.
Oh, it's not, sorry. I'm just, yeah.
We're seeing your presentation, but
yes,
you share that, you know, we need to see your screen.
I know. I see. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay. Here's the sample size calculator. So these are great for people who don't know statistics, like me. We're not good at math, like me. So you can pick your margin of error, your confidence level that you would want to tolerate for uncertainty within the sample, okay? So, and then distribution, and then it'll tell you the margin of errors for each confidence level, each sample, and then it'll tell you the expected sample size, okay? So, and you can actually change all these things. So let's just say we had 100 new accounts opened in a month, okay? So we had 100 new accounts opened. And put that in, like it's going to tell you to audit 80 of them. That's basically what this is, what this represents. This is with a margin of error of 0%. Okay, here. So you get the picture. I'm just going to go back to, oh my. Here we are. Sorry, do you see this?
Yeah, if you can share it as a presentation on yours.
Oh, shoot.
You can see it, I think.
Here.
Yeah, perfect.
I don't know why. Okay, so we're going to run through this quick. This is really a pictorial illustration of how you can test your controls that you have in place to mitigate those risks that you have identified as high in your program. You can do inquiry testing. So understanding, asking people questions, right? Do they understand how to refer suspicious activity internally if they're not in the AML department, that type of thing. Observation, inspection of files, which we talked about, taking samples, and re-performance testing. We were going to do an example of this, but you'll have to read it for now. I apologize. I talk too much.
Maybe
And
you can share some highlights of each one of the lines of defense.
sure, yeah, for sure. So this is really just an example, okay? So of a full spectrum, that's what I would say, AML testing program that includes the 3 lines of defense. So it includes first line, second line, and third. And they all have different responsibilities. Okay, so for example, this is related to AML technology. So your transaction monitoring system, your sanction systems, and all those great things that are under the technology, right? So internal audit will do validations, tuning processes, and AML team, which is the second line, they're going to really hone in on, do we do our suspicious activity properly? Are those systems working? The alerts, are they coming to us? Are they being adjudicated in the proper time frame? And then first line of defense, if you do push out testing to the business units, which larger institutions will do for testing to leverage the business units resources as well, their responsibilities are to keep up, the AML technology that they are responsible and accountable for. So the IT group and operations, for example. Okay. So we're going to do a walkthrough, of customer name screening. So basically, sorry. What we would want to do here for customer name screening and testing, for an example quickly, is making sure the right people show up on your lists, that you have the right lists, that you're properly scanning the lists against your customer base, and it's on an ongoing basis. Your alerts from those screenings, how long does it take to adjudicate them and close them? What is the quality of the notations put in if it's not a match? And what has been done to escalate things such as a possible sanctioned individual or entity or a PEP, right? And how that process works. So you can actually focus your testing around that and make sure that your whole screening process, from screening to escalation to the approval, is all taken care of holistically within your testing. Okay, so I'm not going to go over this, but it's just really an illustration of how your AML program all comes together. Okay, So you can see everything is really interconnected. And then at the bottom, all on the outside, you have effective internal controls, monitoring self-testing, which we were talking about today, and your independent audit. And these are all interconnected, as I said. So it's fairly important to take a risk-based approach, have the board on board, ensure you're proactive and transparent, and get it right the first time. And if you don't, then fix it and have a plan to do that, escalate it, and if you need to, report it to your regulator and you'll stay out of the penalty box. So that is it for today. I could talk way more about this, obviously, you guys know that. Talk all day. But yeah, so we have what, 6 minutes left?
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Laura. That was really informative. Let's go through some of the questions that we received
Okay, sure.
from the audience, and
Love
to
to.
add the questions if anyone has got any more questions.
Hmm.
So one of the questions that we got is that are there instances when repeated self-declaration to FINTRAC were subject to AMS?
Repeated. Okay. Repeat issues. That is a very good question. Off the top of my head, I don't know, but I could find out. I don't believe from FINTRAC, but it does obviously have an impact on, their, even if you've self-disclosed it, if you've done it twice, there's going to be a bit more scrutiny put on that, obviously, because you should have had a proper plan to remediate it in the first place when you disclosed it. And you have to make a commitment basically to FINTRAC in order to ensure that they know what you're doing to fix it and that you show them the results that it has been remediated in accordance with the actual law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that if you are self-disclosing something and you're not fixing it, I think that would be the time that you will be basically more in trouble.
Yeah.
So
you can't just keep self-disclosing things, saying, oh, we messed up here, right? On the same item, because that won't bode well for the institution in the eyes of the regulator, for sure.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Moving on to the second question. What is the major challenge faced by compliance professionals with the technological advancements? At the same time, technology is an important tool to help to improve AML actions. Fraudsters are moving as fast as the programs. How to deal with the constant threat?
So fraudsters in relation to the technology?
Yeah, basically, what are the major challenges that the compliance professionals are facing with the technology advance?
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely a good question. So there are obviously some banks that are and institutions that are way far ahead with their technology and their use and adoption of, some great solutions that help you automate things, make more efficient, make your processes more efficient, things like that. But obviously there's still challenges because the big challenge I see is that a lot of institutions still have data that's in all different places. So, you need a one-stop spot for all your client details. Some way to pull data, and have that mapped properly to your core system and your backend systems. And I know from my experience, there could be multiple backup systems, back end systems and front end systems for different areas of the institution. So they're kind of in silos almost. And sometimes, yeah, if you don't ensure that you get all of that information and pull it from those sources, you could end up with some, errors in the reporting and things like that.
Absolutely.
So it's important to basically have them all compiled as much as possible, these systems, so that they talk to each other, and you can just pull something really easily.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, also she's asking about, at the same time, technology is an important tool because, the technology, the fraudsters are moving, or let's say criminals are moving fast, and they are, they want to, they're doing crimes. At the same time, is the technology like moving as fast as enough? And the thing I believe that, for that particular, answer to that question, I think we cannot rely 100% on the technology. Technology is just a portion of it.
Exactly.
We need to have our controls as well in place, because technology is not the answer, to stop the criminals. We should have our controls as well in place
Yes.
to mitigate that, and as well the testing on top of that to check those controls and to check those systems to make sure that everything is functioning well and it's in a way that it could stop the criminals.
Exactly. Yep, you got it right on. Hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah, good.
You could have done this presentation.
Oh, no, I definitely like to hear your thoughts. You
Oh,
have done so many of these testings that I would love to hear from you. I
thank
think
you.
I think the last question that I want to ask you before we finish the session is that what kind of mistakes that you have seen um, in the testing? Like, what are the common mistakes that you have seen when companies are doing their testing and they're getting it wrong, or they're doing it something that you have seen that it can be improved and we cannot go and do the mistake again?
Okay, so I'd say the best thing to do with that is you need to firstly focus on the highest risk areas and make sure that those risks that have been identified in the highest risk areas and the controls that have been built to mitigate those risks that are identified are working as intended and effective, and they mitigate that risk for the firm. So that's the key thing there.
That's a great point. Yeah, I absolutely agree.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the slides that you mentioned, that the extent of the AML testing, you shouldn't think that it's a very small thing. You should plan
Yes.
it. You should, organize yourself, organize your staff, organize your team in order when you want to run it, you have that actually a good plan in place in order to execute it effectively.
Yes, that is key, Susan. Planning for anything really, actually, right? Especially with respect to your audit, your ongoing testing program. Exactly. Yeah. The planning phase and scoping phase is very important.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, great. So I think we are on the top of the hour, and thank
Thanks.
you so much, Laura. It was a great.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
Thank you for sharing all your knowledge with us, and thanks everyone
No,
for
my
joining us.
pleasure.
We really enjoyed this session, and we really enjoyed your company, everyone. So thanks for being here. Thanks for your support, and keep being with us and share your feedback. We would love to hear your thoughts on how we can improve, how we can make the change, to enhance your experience every time that you come here. And we hope to see you in 2 weeks. We have an interesting session in 2 weeks, so feel free to join. I think the link is up there, but we are gonna also announce it more in the coming weeks. So yeah, see you in 2 weeks, guys. Have a lovely weekend, and enjoy this beautiful day.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.
Laura.
And yes, the slides will be available. Someone had a question, I think I saw in the chat.
Yes.
So we will make the slides available, right? Yes.
Absolutely. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.
Take
Have a
care.
wonderful day.
You too. Bye
Bye-bye.
for now.